What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to the channel. So today I figured we'd take a look at my garbage can. Okay, that doesn't make much sense. I'll explain why I have this little garbage can here in a second, and why you might want to put together a kit like this. So what we've got here is just a little galvanized steel garbage can, ash can. It's just a little bitty thing. It's only, I don't know, maybe 18 inches tall, maybe. It's got a bail that kind of locks the lid in place. It also allows you to carry this around, so if you want to look like a goon, you can carry this around the neighborhood and look weird. But if I flip that bail down and open this guy up, sorry if the camera's moving around here. Let me get the tripod set up here and get you guys situated so you can see what's going on inside this can. Okay, so let me go ahead and pull this lid off. And you can see this lid fits very tight. On the inside of the lid, you will see foil tape. All right, you'll see I've got foil tape around the outside as a gasket. I've got foil tape sealing up any of the openings in this lid. That is for EMP protection, right? So I've got a steel can with any gaps sealed with metal, which gives me some halfway decent EMP protection. Now, I'm not worried about nuclear war kind of EMP so much as I am worried about the sun. So we're at the top of the solar cycle right now. Sorry if this is bouncing around a little bit. I'm trying to get you up a little higher. We're at the top of the solar cycle right now. And the sun is a little angry. And one good solar flare or, coronal mass ejection kind of deal, and we could run into some pretty serious problems. You look at the Carrington event back in the 1800s. If that happened today, we'd be in trouble. So inside the can, you'll see I've got an outdoor research dry bag. This is just an ultralight dry bag. I forget how big it is, but... And inside the can itself, you will see that there is a piece of cardboard that is insulating the sides of the can. Take that out. It's just a piece of cardboard I got wrapped up. And then inside, in the bottom, there is styrofoam. You'll also see that I have any seams in the can sealed up with foil tape. Anywhere there's rivets, anywhere there's a seam. The whole bottom is also sealed because that's a seam. Right, that gives us some EMP protection. Now, the styrofoam and the cardboard are just there to keep the sides insulated so that things aren't touching steel. So how well does this work? Well, I don't know. I mean, this isn't like an industrial EMP protection device, right? But let's do this. So we'll go ahead and we'll turn this. I've got this ESU FD65. We'll go ahead and turn this on. We'll put it on
percent chance of
NOAA weather.
Lows near 15.
Turn that guy up so you can hear it.
Wednesday, mostly cloudy with a 50% chance of snow showers.
You can hear just putting it in the can pretty much kills it. If I seal that up, right, no RF is getting into that can. Now, how much protection is that going to afford for an actual EMP? I don't know. But it clearly works, because if I open this can back up...
Thursday night, mostly cloudy. Lows near 15.
All right, so you can see
partly sunny.
that the can clearly does its job, right? It clearly blocks radio frequencies from entering the can. So that's kind of the idea, right? So let me get the can out of the way here. Lower you guys down. Let's talk about the contents of the dry bag. Now the purpose of the dry bag should be pretty obvious, right? The dry bag is there to keep things dry. We don't want water ingress. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open the bag and I'm going to pull the content. And again, it's just a simple ultralight dry bag, nothing crazy. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to open the bag. I would do this on camera, but it's really hard to do. It's hard to, I tried to do this before. I did one take on this already. It's kind of hard to see what I'm doing with the bag in the camera frame. So I'm going to unload the bag off camera. Just makes life a little easier for me. So at the very top of the bag, there are two things. The very first thing in here is an MTEC ZM2 tuner. So this is a Z-Match tuner. I have two of these. The reason I have this in the bag is so that, let me turn this a little bit so the light's a little better. The reason I have this in the bag is if let's suppose I have an antenna break on me, or if I want to use my shack antenna if it's still good. That shack antenna is not resonant, right? Or if I have a dipole break on me and it's no longer resonant, this Z-Match tuner will tune it up. Or if, let's say, I've got a 40-meter dipole, but I want to try to use that at 80 meters, right? This will allow me to tune it up. The reason I like a Z-Match tuner like this is there are no batteries. This needs no power supply. You just plug your antenna in, tune it up, and run, right? I don't need any external or internal power for a Z-Match tuner. Now, the next thing I've got in here on the top, and I just turned it on before I shot this video, is a cell phone. All right. Oh, Joe's sending me stuff. Joe, if you're watching this video, I just got a notification from you right now. So anyway, I've got this is just a Pixel 8a. This phone is active. There is a SIM in this phone. There is a reason why this phone is in the can, and that's twofold. One, if we have an EMP, obviously cell networks are going to go down, but eventually they're going to come back up. That gives me a phone. Two, you're going to see in a little bit that I've got some other things in this bag that will work with this phone. Now, if you're going to do what I'm doing here, you're going to want an Android phone. Don't try to do this with iOS. I'll talk about why in a minute. But you don't need a really expensive phone. Just a cheap Android phone will do the job. We're going to want to make sure we download the software we're going to need beforehand. But Android phone, that's the next thing in the bag. All right, let's continue digging. The next thing in here, let me take it out of its bag. This is still in the original bag. I keep it in. And this is my HF radio. All I've got in here is just a true SDX. Now, this is not a great radio, but it's fairly capable for what it is. Just a little dinky thing, right? But this is I think it's a 5-band radio. I think it's 80, 60, 40, 30, 20. All right, it's got an internal mic, which is actually quite good. It's got an internal speaker in it, which is actually quite bad. It's got a push-to-talk, so you don't even need an external microphone for this thing. All right, this will do voice. It will do digital, although I don't have the digital set up for this radio in here because I figure if we have an EMP, digital is going to be of limited usefulness because you're going to need computers. And it'll do Morse code. And I do have a CW key with me. This will run on, I can run it off of a 5-volt USB with a USB micro cable. Now, that's only going to give me half a watt output, but as far as receive is concerned, it'll receive just fine, and I can transmit on half a watt. And keep in mind, after an EMP, power is probably not going to be super important because your noise floor is going to be nothing. There's my 12-volt jack, so I've got the ability to run this on 12 volts, you'll see in a minute. If we run this guy on 12 volts, it'll put out around 5 watts, which is plenty. All right, so that's my HF rig. And I do have some other things in here that go along with that. Next, let's talk about our power solutions. So I have 2 different things in here for power. So the first thing we've got here is a talent cell. This is a fairly good size one. This is what, a 6 amp hour, I think? I forget. Yeah, 6 amp hour. It's a 6 amp hour talent cell. It has a USB-A and a 12-volt jack on it. All right, flip the switch, turn it on, we're powered up. So this will run this true SDX. It's also got a USB so I can charge other stuff with it. And you're going to see that I can actually charge other things with this as well. Some other things that I've got in the bag. So we've got our talent cell. We also have this little High Lucky solar charger. So this is a 25,000 milliamp hour charging bank. You'll see that it's got 2 USB-A's and a USB-C. All right, so this can charge via USB-C, and it can discharge, so you can power things via USB-A or USB-C. This one is nice, and you've seen this in another video of mine. This one's nice because it has fold-out solar panels. So a lot of these little power banks that come with solar panels on them, they have one single cell on them, one single panel. If you've ever charged one of these things off solar, they take forever to charge. So I figure the more surface area I've got, the better. All right, so this one has much more surface area on those photovoltaic cells. It also has on the back, it's got a light. You're not gonna be able to tell how bright this is because it's pretty bright in this room, but this light is actually pretty darn bright. So if I needed a work light, I have a light as well. So we have 2 different ways to power things. And I do have some other cables in here for power as well, but those are my power solutions. We've got, this should come as no surprise, a couple of UV5Rs in here. Let me just take everything out of this pack. It'll be easier to go through everything if it's all out of the bag. So give me just one moment while I take everything out of here so I can kind of do things in an order that makes sense. Otherwise, I'm just digging through the bag and pulling stuff out willy-nilly. So there's a lot of stuff in this dry bag. You can fit a lot in this. It's kind of surprising, actually, how much stuff you can fit in that little can. So let me just get everything unloaded here. So it'll take just a second. All right, so we've got our two UV5Rs there. Those are both the tri-band versions of them. So those will run 2 meters, 70 centimeters, and 1 1/4 meters. Now you'll see these both have USB-C charging batteries. So this has got a standard capacity one on it. This has the extra capacity battery on it. I also have, and these are all charged, 4 standard capacity batteries. Now, these are not the USB chargeable ones. These are just standard batteries. All right. Now, along with those, I have 2 regular length antennas. I also have 2 longer range antennas. All right. So the way I figure is whoever's out in the field takes the radio with the big battery. The batteries in these things last forever as is. With that extended battery, this thing will go for days. Person back at the house takes the one with the smaller battery and they can swap between them. I also have, so if I went out in the field, I would take this guy and another charged battery just in case. I also have a speaker mic. And I also have a charging cradle. Now you say, what would you want the charging cradle for? Well, keep in mind that these batteries, I can't charge via USB-C. However, what I can do is I can take, and I have 2 of these in the bag, I can take one of these 12-volt barrel jack cables. One goes in the back of the cradle. The other one plugs into the talent cell. Turn that talent cell on. So you will now see that I've got a green light. We can charge off the talent cell with one of these cables. So it behooves you to have one of these charging cradles, but make sure it's one of the ones that has the 12-volt jack in the back. Make sure it's not hardwired. So that kind of is my UHF, VHF setup. Okay, so there we've got our ability to do line of sight communications. And again, you're going to notice that the gear that I have in this kit is not high-end stuff, right? I don't have an Elecraft radio, HF radio, and a bunch of Yaesu and ICOM and Kenwood radios and stuff in here. I got cheap stuff in here, because keep in mind, I hardly ever open this can. The last time I opened this can was when I shot my original preparedness video, and I got this guy out of the can. Other than that, I never open this can. This thing sits in my basement all the time. So I don't want to put several $1,000s worth of high-end radios in here. If you want to, if you've got the money and you want to put high-end stuff in there, be my guest. But for me, it doesn't make any sense to put really high-end stuff in a can and leave it in the basement all the time. So that is my sort of UHF, VHF kind of setup. Let me get that stuff out of the way here. All right. Ooh, I can't reach it. So, to go along with our True SDX, I have a CW key. This is a CW Morse N0SA key, which I dislike greatly. Now, here's the fun part. The real N0SA keys are amazing. These CW Morse ones are kind of meh. I leave this one in the kit because it works, but it's not great. It feels good to send on, but it sends a lot of like erroneous dits and das and stuff. But you'd say, well, why would you want Morse code in an emergency? Well, believe it or not, there are a lot of ham radio operators out there that know Morse code, and Morse code is way more efficient than voice. So I can transmit way further with Morse code than I can with my voice. I mean, I've worked Cuba voice on that little tiny radio before. I've worked into Europe and all over the place with this radio on CW. Okay. I also have, because the internal speaker in this thing is hot garbage, I have headphones. I also have a little speaker. So that speaker allows me to actually hear what's going on. So if other people need to be able to hear, I can use that. If only I need to hear, I can use that guy. I also have 2 USB cables here. One's a USB-C to USB-A, and one is a USB micro to USB-A. I can use the USB micro to charge this guy. I can also use the USB-A in this to plug into the USB, or sorry, the USB micro, to plug into the USB port on the TrueSDX to power it from a charging brick. I also have a wall wart in here, just a cheap wall wart. I think this one came with my Kindle way back in the day. If the power ever comes back up, I've got USB cables I can charge stuff again. All right. I also have another one of those 12-volt barrel cables, but this time I've got an adapter on the end. And this is the power cable for 12 volts for the TrueSDX. Okay. So again, this is all real simple stuff here. So the other thing I've got that kind of goes along with this stuff is I have an up converter. So this goes from USB 5 volts to 12 volts. So I can run my 12 volt stuff on a 5 volt USB using this up converter. And I've done it. It's very simple. That guy plugs into your USB, that plugs into your 12 volts, this converts it. It's a real simple process, works really well, they're dirt cheap. Now, the last couple things I have in here, let me get all this stuff out of frame so you can see. The next thing is the biggest thing in the whole bag, and that is my HF antenna. So this is a 2040 linked dipole with coax and guy lines and insulators and everything. This thing's ready to string it up and go. It's 2040. That radio will do 80, 40, 30, 20. I can probably tune that dipole up on 80. It'll do 80, 60, 40, 30, 20, I think. I think I could probably tune the rest of those bands up with the Z-Match. I know I can do 80. I've never tried 30 or 60. I'm sure it would do it, though. I don't know how efficient it would be, but it would work. All right, so I've got my antenna. I can also use my shack antennas. So keep in mind that I've got my 9-to-1 outside the house on my random wire, which would probably still be functional in case of an EMP, because we're not talking little tiny wires. And from my UHF, VHF, I've got my J-pole up outside, which we can use as well. Now, to go along with the rest of this, and this is why this is the other reason I have the phone. All right, so we have the phone. I also have, let me take that out of the bag, an old RTL SDR. So this is an STR dongle. I have a USB-A to USB-C on the go cable, so I can plug my dongle into my phone. And I have a little antenna if I want a field antenna. I want to be able to carry this around with me. Or I can hook it to my J-pole outside the window, or my HF antenna. And this will allow me to listen. I can't transmit with it, but I can listen to just about anything using that RTL SDR. Now, I do have the version 4, the new one that's really good on HF. I don't have that in this pack. That's one of the old ones. But this is why you want an Android phone. You ever try to use a SDR on an iOS device, you're going to want to punch yourself in the head. But I already have, if you look on the phone, I already have the driver and everything. There's the driver for RTL SDR. There's SDR Touch. I've got the SDR software up and ready to go on this phone. All I gotta do is plug it in and run. Okay, so I've got the ability to listen to anything with this guy. So that's why I have that. That's why I have that phone, is because I want to be able to run that SDR. The last thing I've got is just another BNC that goes BNC female to BNC male. So you can see we have a whole pile of stuff in here. Let me move this stuff all back over. We'll bring the camera out so everything's back in frame again, and you can kind of see everything that was in this pack. So as you can see, all of that stuff fit in the dry bag, which went in that can. Okay, so this is, like I said, this may not be a complete kit. There may be things in here that I'm missing that you might be like, hey man, I couldn't live without XYZ. That's fine. This was just something I threw together for myself, just in case. And like I said, this stuff lives in that can all the time. I don't ever take it out. That way, if I need it, pick the can up and everything's ready to roll. And again, none of this stuff is expensive, right? I mean, the most expensive thing here, well, the phone. Other than that, probably the next most expensive thing is either that True SDX or that Z-Match tuner, and they're both like $100, right? So nothing in this is terribly expensive. There's a few $100 worth of stuff in this bag, nothing crazy. So I just wanted to shoot this video to kind of give you a little bit of food for thought. What might you want to put in an EMP kit so that if, God forbid, something did happen, you would still have some communications up. Now keep in mind that a lot of times, I'm not worried so much about being able to transmit, although I do want to be able to, but I want to be able to hear what's going on. Okay, so this gives me multiple ways to do that. I've got HF, I've got UHF, VHF, I've got cellular, I've got an SDR, right? I have multiple power solutions, right? I've got my talent cell over here, and I've got that power bank. I do have a wall wart in case the power comes back up, right? I've got my pile of batteries and my charging cradle for my UV5R stuff. So like I said, this video is just more of a, what might you want to throw into one of these kits? You know, is this something you should consider? Is this crazy? Like, have I gone overboard with this? Like I said, this is just something I keep in the basement all the time in case I need it. So everybody, thank you so much for watching. If you think I'm missing something, go ahead and leave that down in the comments below. If you have any questions or anything, feel free to give me a shout in the comments below. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching. Hopefully this was helpful. And until next time, as always, 7-3.